Hello, hello. Welcome to Straight Shootin' alongside AJ Riley. I'm Matt Basson. Thank you guys for having us. Got a bunch of baseball and golf news for you. Before we get into that, got to remind you to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us. That'd be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, full episodes on YouTube, as well as DetroitSportsNation.com. AJ, been a minute, man. Had some illnesses and taking us out of the game a bit.
No, it has been a minute. I mean, at least 2 weeks we haven't done a straight shooting. So I'm glad to be back. And, I started my new show, The Corner. You're getting ready to wrap up Throwing Stones with the NBA Finals happening. So, it's not like we haven't been doing anything. Mm-hmm. It's just...
Right. We've been busy. Had to fill in, for Dylan on the big picture. Didn't even get to do my big picture, which, I'm assuming I'm going to have to do it soon anyway because Paul's going to need someone else to cover again.
I know. You got your topic ready for that?
But, it's been so long. The last time you and I talked, the Los Angeles Angels were part of that New York, L.A. They're all rocking and rolling and running Major League Baseball, man.
So maybe straight shooting.
Man, how things change.
Straight shooting is the Angels' good luck because they haven't had any over the last few weeks.
They need us. They're gonna need us because you're talking about a team that look, we were surprised. Obviously, we weren't expecting the Angels to do this, and we know they spent a bunch of money to up that that pitching staff. And you obviously have Mike Trout, and they got some other weapons as well, but it just hasn't come together for them. And so we weren't expecting that to happen this year either. But lo and behold, they get off to the second hottest start in franchise history. And a short 2 months later, mired in the worst losing streak in franchise history of over 12 games, over 13 now, the Angels fire their manager, Joe Maddon. And I'm sure most of the baseball world, and I'm sure you were too when it first came out, you were just like, wait, what?
Not really, though. To a certain extent, you have to expect somebody to be the scapegoat when things go this horribly. You have to expect somebody to take the blame. And, a lot of times that's going to rest on a manager. Now, did Joe Maddon lose them those 12 games in a row? No. He did not. They have much larger problems that we're going to discuss here in a minute. But when you've lost 12 games after you spent the money that you've spent to bring in people like Anthony Rendon and things like that, somebody's going to take the blame for it, and it was Joe Maddon.
Well, and Anthony Rendon that's been on the IL for a while now.
But, Matt, on our last show, we talked about this. And we said that the Angels' curse is health. They can never stay. Mike Trout left the game Tuesday night, I think, because he was trying to stretch a double into a single, which is what Trout does, right? He's an aggressive player. But I think this team...
Other way around.
What?
Stretching a single into a double.
Oh, man.
He running the wrong way, and you're mentioning...
Okay, it's been a
long
day,
fog
folks.
is real, folks.
Oh,
COVID fog is real.
You're not kidding. Yeah, he tried to stretch a single into a double. But, okay, regardless of the fact that, Trout came out of the game the other night, Rendon's been on the IL, this team, we said this, they've kind of, overshot their value, I think. I think that fool's gold of the beginning of the season and that hot start that they got off to was exactly that, fool's gold, because we even said of those four teams that were leading the divisions, right? The first time that both LA teams and both New York teams were leading their division at the same time, they were the worst of the bunch. And there's actually statistics to back that up. Defensively, they're a worse defensive team metrically, according to Fangraphs, than the Detroit Tigers. They actually have a UZR rating,
You're talking about a top 10 defense, AJ.
No, not according to Fangraphs. Well, according to Fangraphs and filtering it by UZR, which is an ultimate zone rating, which assigns a run value to different defensive metrics like arm strength and range and all of those different things, the Angels actually produce on the season a negative 8.5 UZR. Their run value for their defense is they've lost 8.5 runs, which is actually, I say they're worse than the Tigers. They're actually tied with the Tigers in that rating. But it's not. It doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't get any better than that because they're hitting. They're striking out at like a 24.6% clip. And they're walking at a very low clip, which is not a good combination. Like, they have better players than the Tigers, but metrically, they're not really better than the Tigers. And it, like, yes, they have better players. That's why they have won more games. I'm not saying they're the same as the Tigers. But metrically, when you look at the numbers, they are right in range with where Detroit is. And it's just, it was fool's gold, man.
Yeah, it's not a good place to be. You don't want to be where the Tigers are because the Tigers are not having a very good year. So, but, I mean.
Hey, it's
and it was good fool's gold. You 27-17.
Yeah.
It worked for a while.
But
month and a half, it worked pretty well.
But what does that create when you have the type of players that you have, you get off to that start and you spent that kind of money, that sets expectations. And now, when you come back down to earth, it ruins those expectations. I mean, they now are behind the Astros in the AL West by 10 games. By 10 games.
No, it's not good. It's not. I mean, and they
out
of those 4 teams that we discussed, you know. No, but that's another part of the big picture with them is that yes, they are worse than the other 3 teams we discussed, the 2 New York teams and the LA team. They also had the stiffest competition in their division in the Houston Astros. The AL East, you know, it's generally a war zone, but the Yankees have seemed to have taken command of that. The NL East. You really don't know what you're going to get. You know, it might be the Braves stepping up, might be the Phillies stepping up, might be the Mets stepping up. You really don't know. The Dodgers have gotten some pushback by the Giants recently, but it's pretty much been their division for the last 5 years. The AL West has been, you know, the Houston Astros division. So you have a big name pushing back on you atop of that, and then your team just falls apart, and you can't get any wins, and you're mired in a 13-game losing streak. And your manager, who will forever be, you know, never have to buy a drink in the city of Chicago, can't say the same thing in Orange County.
No, absolutely you cannot. And that's why, right? Your team's underperforming. Somebody's got to go. I mean, the Phillies did it with Joe Girardi, right? They are also a team that has put up money to bring people in and should have a better team than what they have. But, you know, when you measure baseball teams by the names on the back of the jersey and not necessarily by what the numbers say, you end up creating expectations that will never be met. And that's kind of what happens with a lot of people around the game of baseball. You look at a Trout, a Rendon, an Ohtani. You look at a Castellanos, a Schwarber, a Bryce Harper. And you're like, man, these guys should be winning their division every year. But, I mean, those players do have deficiencies. Some, you know, less deficiencies than others. But you can't, I mean, you've got to get on base. You got to walk. You got to strike out less. You got to make contact. And the Angels just aren't doing that. When you strike out 25% of the time, that's
and
not good.
Not good. But and on top of that, it also looks like this has been in the works anyway. This was the final year of a 3-year contract for Joe Maddon. He was hired by the owner, and he was hired before the new general manager was hired. So now you've got a manager working under a GM who is not the GM's guy. Generally not a good situation. Sometimes it works out, but usually the GM wants to bring in their own guy. And on top of that, there's questions about his decision making. he walks Corey Seager with the bases loaded earlier in this season. He spills the beans on this idea that Mike Trout was going to move to one of the corner outfield spots, and they were going to bring someone else in to play center field to try and save some wear and tear on Trout's body. And there was a way, I guess, the Angels wanted to go about presenting this idea to Mike Trout, and Joe Maddon just went out in front of the press and basically spilled the beans on it. So it looked like he made some decisions that made their job a little bit easier as well, to say, you know what, forget finishing the third year, it's time to go.
Yeah, and I mean, why not, right? If you don't like what's happening, then make a change. And so they made a change. I mean, you got to respect them for making a change. You bring it back to Detroit, right? We've been woefully pathetic on offense, and not a single change has been made yet. I mean, we haven't seen real even demotions aside from Akil Baddoo. Chris Coolball still has a job, so it's like, at least they made a decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I don't want the Tigers making that same decision. Please do not get rid of AJ Hinch.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, absolutely
don't follow in the Angels' footsteps. No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
But here's the thing with the Tigers, right? Because the thing with the Tigers, we talked about them getting off to a bad start. Tommy Lasorda said, you're going to win 54 games, you're going to lose 54 games, and it's what you do with the middle 54 that matters. And against the Pirates, Tuesday night and then Wednesday afternoon, they started that second stretch of 54. Started with game 55, right? The first 54 didn't go so great. Okay, so what are we going to do with this next stretch? And I think we're going to see a little bit different team. You're going to get guys back like Grossman. Green's going to be back. But I know we're not talking about the Tigers, so I just can't help it.
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet. I do want to stay on the Angels for a minute because they've made a move that's become more popular as of late, and that move was to a former ball player, a former Tiger, in Phil Nevin, who moved from third base coach to manager. So nice ascension. And this is a guy that's kind of been in the mix of managerial, interviews in the past. And spent the last 4 years in the Yankees organization, being the third base coach there. After the Yankees really disappointed in the postseason last year, there was a sweep of managers fired. He was one of them, or coaches fired, and he was definitely one of them, and got picked up, pretty quickly by the Angels. And now, lo and behold, he finds himself finally at the position that he's wanted to be in for a little while now.
Yeah, and I mean, good for him. He well-traveled guy while he was there. One-time All-Star during his career, 15.9 WAR guy. So not like an outstanding player during his time, but I mean, he did play.
Nice 12-year career,
Like he did. He made a 10-year mark, and that's a fully
bounced
vested,
around a little.
That's a fully vested retirement so good for him. Good for him. I can't say much because we haven't seen him in the role.
The players seem to love him.
Yeah.
Right. And this will be nice to see. And and I think he's going to get a real fair shot the rest of this season. They're not going to get rid of him, till the end of this season. If they get rid of him at all, we'll see how he does with the Angels, with the roster, and if he can turn around. The players seem to love him, and I think a lot of the players, also enjoyed Maddon. He might have rubbed some people the wrong way. He's a little bit of a different kind of guy. But being a former player himself, Nevin's able to relate to the players really well. It wasn't that long ago that he was playing. It was about 15, years ago or so. It was by the end of his career. So he's going to get a chance the rest of this season to see what he can do in this role. And he's got players to do it with. We're hoping Mike Trout comes back. Poor guy, Jesus, can't stay healthy. Just finally gets out of an 0-for-26 slump. Hits a home run, and then later on, that single, he tried to stretch into a double, and he pulls up lame. So now it's how long is Trout going to be out? And this has been part of the Mike Trout story, unfortunately. Is that he hasn't been able to play a full season or even most of a season a lot of the years in his career. And last year he played, 35 games? Something like that? Many. So he's coming off a year where he missed the wide majority of it. Hopefully this is a little nothing. He's, gone for a week, maybe two, and then comes back because, it's great for the Angels. It's better for baseball when one of your best players is able to be out there promoting your game with this greatness.
Right. And you hope that it's nothing serious with Trout. It was growing tightness was what they came out with. But it, unfortunately, like you said, is part of his story. Now, listen, you're never going to convince me that he's not the best player in the game. Even though he's kind of come down off of the mantle a little bit because of those missed years, watching this guy play is something special. When you're as young as he was, being put into on graphics with guys like Mantle and Mays, that's a special player. And yes, there have been people every year that have challenged him for the best that year. But when you're consistently the one that they're comparing you to, then you're the best, right? And so you want to see the best players on the field. And you want to see the best players playing. And you know what? If he needs to move to a corner outfield position, then Mike Trout needs to move to a corner outfield position if that's going to be less wear and tear on the body. He just has to.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's a smart move for the rest of his career to make that move, and they looked like the Angels were in a position to try and do it, and then Maddon blew it up by bringing it out in a way that the Angels were not trying to do. And obviously, you know, when Mike Trout finds out on Twitter that this is what the Angels want to do, you're not going to have a good reaction. If you are the face of a franchise and you are finding out through social media that this is what your team is trying to do because your manager's got a big mouth, that's not helping your situation, and it's going to hurt the ego a lot more than the news alone of it's not about you not being good enough to play center field. You're Mike frickin' Trout. It's about how long do you want to play this game for? Or how long do you want to be able to play this game? Do you want to be able to go out on your terms as opposed to being forced to retire early and, you know, rob yourself and the rest of us of your greatness?
Well, and that's the question that you have to ask Mike Trout, right? Do you want to be a what could have been Mickey Mantle, right? Like, Mickey Mantle will always be kind of remembered as one of the greatest that's ever played the game, but also very much a what could have been because of injuries and, you know, the stuff that we talked about in one of the greatest baseball movies ever of 61, which I did go back and watch last week, and it is so good. But I watched a lot of movies last week, let me tell you.
I bet you did.
But you that's the question that you got to really kind of wonder about Trout. Are you going to be a what could have been, or are you going to be the guy, like I can't think of a good term for it, but like the one that's remembered for all the right reasons, not the what could have beens.
No, a Willie Mays.
Right.
A Willie Mays, who played, 22 years in Major League Baseball? You know, and did he stay too long? Absolutely. But he went out on his terms.
Right.
He didn't get taken out in year 13, 14, because he didn't take care of his body and, you know, drank too much, smoked too much, partied too much, and didn't do everything. I'm not saying Mike Trout did that, by the way. Right. I'm just saying, in general, there are plenty of players who their careers ended early because, guess what? They enjoyed life. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But if you are destined to be and have proven yourself to be one of the greats, there are sacrifices involved in being one of those greats. And, you know, if you want to be compared to Willie Mays and that ilk, more so than the, you know, the Mickey Mantles who are just as great, but you got not quite the career of these other guys because you weren't able to stay on the field.
Right. Yeah, it's a question.
All right, now let's get to our Tigers.
Let's get to them.
Let's get to them. Winners of 2 straight, they swept the Pittsburgh Pirates in a 2-game series at PNC Park. Hey, 2 road wins against Pittsburgh. Isn't this the same Pittsburgh team that just swept the Los Angeles Dodgers like 2 weeks ago? So I'll take it. You know, I'll absolutely take it. We saw Miggy being Miggy, and Miggy's been pretty darn good the last 14 games or so. Batting average is shot up, and getting some timely hits in the 8th inning to help the Tigers complete that 2-game sweep, a 3-1 victory. And we better start getting used to the name Alex Faedo, AJ.
Oh, my goodness.
Because
yes, we
this
should.
Kid's throwing some gas.
Well, it's not even just the gas, right? It's the way that he pitches and is doing such a phenomenal job as a rookie, but truthfully, not as highly touted as the younger guys, right? The Mises and the Scoobles. Kind of got lost in the shuffle of the rebuild, right? But he was, if I'm not mistaken, our first rebuild draft pick. Kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, like fell down the prospect rankings, but I mean, this guy's a former College World Series MVP. He knows how to pitch on the big stage. Like, this is exactly the type of guy that the Tigers need in their rotation, because you have Skubal, who is, even when Mize is healthy, Skubal's going to be the best pitcher on that staff. I've said it since the beginning of last year, even a year before that. Skubal's going to be the ace of the staff even when Mize is healthy. You have the two big guns. You need that third guy that's just like that steady rock, right? He goes in, he does his job. He's not flashy. He's not going to strike out a million players. He is going to get in there. He's going to give you 5, 6 solid innings. I mean, he's on 7 outings now of 5 innings or more with 2 or less runs, which is the third time that it's happened since 1893. That's insane.
Third time, first time since Jared Weaver in 2006. That's absolutely insane.
But that's the kind of guy, the kind of pitching that you need. That's the kind of, way you build a rotation, right? He's that good, solid third starter. So you get into a 3-game series and you got your ace 2 and 3, you have a pretty good chance of winning that series. 4 and 5 pick up the slack later on, but this is good.
To say the least, when you were talking about something that has only been done 3 times in over 120 years, almost 130 years now, that's impressive. And even if you don't know of this stat, but to be the first pitcher to go 5 or more innings, allow 2 or less runs in his first 7 starts since Jared Weaver in 06, and Jared Weaver was a pretty good pitcher. Might not be remembered for it because again, he had health issues as well. Both Weavers actually had some issues there, but when they were good, they were really good. And to be the third player to join him and Fernando Valenzuela, because that'll be the record that he will tie if he gets his 8th, straight appearance of doing this. Young, older baseball fans will know, what Fernando meant to baseball. Just an outrageous character, perfectly made for Los Angeles.
He was
definitely a memorable character and damn good pitcher as well in the major leagues. And if Alex Faedo can continue this ascent, that's fantastic for the Tigers moving forward.
It is. Now, if I were to ask you, what's the Tigers' record in the last 17 games? What would you say it is?
Let's see. So they are. What are they? They're 33 and 23 overall right now.
Well, no, you have that backwards. They're
last
22 and 33.
Sorry, my bad. 22 and 33. The last
they're
17
23
games?
and 33 after the win on Wednesday. They're 10 games under 500.
Right, yeah. So 23 and 33.
Yep.
10 games under 500. The last 17 games, I know they got swept by the Yanks. That was a bit of a longer series than their sweep of Pittsburgh. But I would guess we are not too far under 500 for those 17 games.
We're 10 and 7.
7 and 10?
10 and 7.
We're 10 and 7. Hell yeah.
So that's the thing, right? When we talk about the Tigers, like the offense is putrid. But the offense is also getting a little bit better. When I look in, on the corner, we discuss this quite often. But I've been really tracking how they're hitting the ball, how hard they're hitting the ball, because I want to know, are they actually hitting the ball solid? But when I look at like them tracking it and hitting the ball hard, there's a lot of outs that are being made with hard hit baseballs and expected batting averages on balls in play for like a ball hit like that are over 4, 6, 800 expected batting averages. They were just an out, right? So eventually those balls are going to fall. In baseball, everything evens out. And I'm like looking at their game Tuesday night, which took me till midnight because they didn't start until 9 o'clock. But I mean, balls in play, like Javi Baez, for instance, okay? Free swinger. We know this. And it's been the curse, and everybody's kind of down on Javi right now, which, okay, he hasn't produced. I get it. But he finally saw pitches in an at-bat. He saw 6 pitches in his first at-bat and roped a double down the left field line. Hit the ball hard. It was like the hardest ball hit all night at 112 miles per hour off the bat. That is what we need Javi Baez to do. See pitches, because if you swing, here's my thing with Javi. If you swing at the first 3 pitches and you're swinging at the pitcher's pitches, you're not giving him an opportunity to make a mistake. But when you start battling and you start seeing pitches, eventually that pitcher is going to leave one up. And then you can crush it. And that's where I think Javi's kind of spinning his wheels right now. Is he's just, first of all, his timing is terrible right now. Because he's rolling everything over, he's pulling everything. But he's just got to see more pitches in that bat and wait for those mistakes that he can jump on. I'm excited about these next 54 games because I think that we're going to see a bit of a turnaround. I wouldn't be surprised if we're within 2-3 games of 500 after the next 54. So by game 108, let's say that we're, 52 and 54? No, that's bad math.
52 and 56?
53 and 56? I would say that's an improvement, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah. That's a heck of an improvement over what they've been this year. Because, I mean, you're still talking about...
That means that we would be 9 games over 500 in those 54 games. Because we started 12 games under 500 after 54. So, I can see it. I know I'm eternally optimistic about this team, but when Miguel Cabrera is the best hitter on your team and everybody's eventually going to find their level, right? Water always finds its level, which is true about baseball. These guys are not going to stay down all season. They're going to find their level. Miguel's going to continue to do what he's doing. The offense is going to get better. I mean, Daz Cameron has, what was the graphic that I saw today? Please don't betray me. Like 5 of his last 8 hits are all extra base hits, and he's hitting the ball hard. Daz Cameron, who some don't even consider to be a major league hitter, he's finally getting some run on the field, and he's hitting the ball. Yeah, his average is around like 220, but he's not had the opportunity. So I'm excited to see what happens with them these next 54 games.
I mean, look, we're still talking about the worst offense in baseball by a wide margin. 27 less runs than the second worst team, which is the Oakland Athletics. So there's reason for hope because it can't be worse. Right. It's only got to go up.
That's the
message. And
we're
talking about a defense as far as runs scored. Right. No, absolutely. And that's the thing, is it's got to go up. You still have a pitching staff that is giving you chances, night in and night out. Literally, there are less than 10 teams in baseball that have had less runs scored against them than the Detroit Tigers. So your pitching staff is giving you a chance. If the offense can even get a semblance of getting it together, you're talking about a 500 baseball club.
And it's stupid, silly stuff that's killing them, too. Right? Like, you look at that Yankees series, for instance. Okay, game 1. Garrett Cole, you were not beating Garrett Cole that night. That was like one of those special pitcher nights where you're like, I mean, from our chat that we had that night going on. I'm sitting here texting y'all like, hey, something special is going on in the Bronx.
1 run was enough.
That's literally what I said after inning 3, wasn't it? I said,
you said 1 run was enough.
Game's over. The way Cole's throwing right now, they don't need more than 1 run. They got 12 more than 1, but it is what it is. That's a whole nother segment. But like, I look at that game on Sunday against the Yankees, right? And it was just stupid things that really killed them and lost them that game. Javi Baez not recognizing the runner was leaving from first and goes to turn 2 and then doesn't have a chance to make the play at first. And then, walking a batter with the bases loaded, and then you got a guy on third with a slow roller hit to third base, and he throws the ball away. Like, I understand being aggressive defensively in that spot, but you weren't even in a position to make that play, let alone execute that play. So it's just cleaning up stupid, silly stuff like base running errors, right? Like, Javi gives him the lead and then gets caught in no man's land because Gallo barely bobbled the ball. I like the aggressiveness, but we need like a tempered aggression that will like work to our benefit, not work to our detriment as it has been.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Bad luck, nothing you can do about. But bad decisions, you definitely can. And the more the Tigers can cut down on those,
yes,
the better off they're going to be. And, hopefully we're starting to see a turn of things. Like you said, last 17 games, 10-7. I don't think they could have said that for the 17 games before that. So I think they're definitely on the upswing, and hopefully we can enjoy them some more this summer than we have in this spring.
Right, for sure. That's the whole goal. No, I mean the 17 before that they were like 5-12. Just rough estimate. So yeah, I mean definitely
big difference.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah.
It's time to talk about
All right,
golf.
let's get off of the grass and the sand, and let's talk about the grass and the sand. So, the LIV Tour is getting underway, and names are dropping like flies, AJ. Phil Mickelson, we knew about it. It's been an ongoing thing for a while now. But now you've got Dustin Johnson. You got Bryson DeChambeau. You've got Patrick Reed. You've got Ian Poulter. You've got Lee Westwood. You've got Graham McDowell. These are all names
Louis
you know
Oosthuizen.
From major tournaments and PGA tournaments. Louis Oosthuizen out there. Kevin Na out there. These guys are all going to play, and they are all giving up their PGA Tour cards, except for Phil Mickelson. But everyone else is giving up their PGA Tour cards to go be a part of this new groundbreaking golf league that Greg Norman is the CEO of. Got to have a big name there. And is trying to change the game of golf.
And you know what? I'm excited about it. Like, I'm literally, like, I'm kind of, like, more interested in what's going to happen in London this weekend than I am on the PGA Tour this weekend. And so I hope it gets some run, like, on television. Is there any type of TV deals do we know about, or do we know if it's going to be broadcasted?
It's definitely going to be broadcasted. I'm not 100% sure where yet.
Okay.
But
see,
so
if
for
I
the
were,
next,
for
the next one,
if I were like TNT, or I were like, I mean, of course ESPN, but like maybe one of those like smaller networks that doesn't necessarily have golf coverage, but they maybe want to get into that market, I would be signing a deal with LIV right now. Like, I'd be going, let me be your exclusive broadcasting company for these tournaments, and I would make it happen.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
You can free live stream it at livegolf.com,
Okay.
YouTube, and Facebook.
Okay.
So multiple ways to watch this, none of them on your television as of yet.
Well, unless you have like a Fire Stick and you can live it from YouTube.
Right.
But
you're using your
sure.
you're using your television as a big computer.
At
monitor.
least it's getting out there. It's what shocked me when the news came down this week was the resignation of the tour card. That's what shocked me. And but what's interesting about that is
they don't want
the statements that were made, right, by PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan that said that if you participate in this London thing, then there could be disciplinary action. Dustin Johnson's like, no, there's not. What are you going to do? Because you can't keep them out of the majors, from what I understand, right? You can't keep them out of the majors because they're not sanctioned by the...
Three of them for sure.
Except the PGA Championship. But again...
I don't know about the PGA.
I would imagine...
PGA Championship, I think they can. But the U.S.,
for sure.
The Open Championship and the Masters.
But we go back to what we've said before. Of all the majors, the PGA Championship is the one that matters the least. Nobody really cares about the PGA Championship. The Masters, the U.S. Open, and the Open...
Well, as fans, we don't.
Well, okay, yeah, sure. The golfers for their career, they're still major winners. Like, I get that, and I'm not, like, upset about that.
Right.
But as a fan, like, I don't even know if... I maybe watched, like, 4 shots on the third round of the PGA Championship. I just was not interested in it, for whatever reason. Just not interested. Now, I will tune into the U.S. Open. I will tune into the the Open Championship. The only thing that sucks about this is the resignation of the Tour card does mean that they cannot participate in the Ryder Cup. So that does kind of suck, because the Ryder Cup's one of my favorite events. Even, like, it's like Masters,
I mean, and this
Ryder
is...
Cup.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I hear you. I absolutely love the Masters. I have fantastic memories from multiple different Masters, and I still think the greatest battle I ever saw was Patrick Reed and Rory McIlroy in the Ryder Cup, because that was just so much fun. The crowd into it, Rory into it, Reed into it. That was one of the most fun golf I've ever seen in my life. But that's on the PGA, I think, in my mind. I'm not putting that on the players. You have put the players
for sure
in this position to make this sacrifice. And so now it's on the PGA, in my mind, to make it right eventually. I think they will. I think this is something that, as long as the LIV Golf Tour doesn't fade out and more names, because like they're already saying Ricky Fowler is like this close to signing, so he might be leaving the PGA Tour as well. You've already got some major championship winners. Look, you got the former number one. You got, Dustin Johnson's over there.
A couple
Phil
former
Mickelson, the second most acclaimed golfer in the last 50 years of golf. It's Tiger Woods, and then it's Phil.
Well, 50
and
years
then it's everybody else.
Back
The
to
last
1970
40 years
when
of golf
Jack
or so.
was still going. So let's say like the last 30 years.
Yeah, I know. But okay, fine. We can say the last 40 years. We can say since I was born.
Okay.
Since 1982, Jack won, one or two more majors?
Right.
He won the 86 Masters. I don't know what he won before that. That was in the 80s. But Phil, 45 wins on tour, 6 major championships. He is second behind Tiger in this era, and he is gone. Hasn't turned in his card, but he's got his issues with the PGA, and everybody knows about it by now. Unfortunately, they're focused on the stuff he said about Saudi Arabia and not focused on the problems the PGA is actually causing by not giving the players basically NIL. They're basically taking away their name, image, and likeness for all of their shots. So it's on the PGA to make this right, in my mind. And if LIV Golf is a success, their hand's gonna be forced at some point.
And you know what? Good, right? That competition breeds success. Yeah,
greatness.
And it breeds greatness. And so there definitely has to be pressure that the PGA Tour is feeling, especially with the names that they've lost. I mean, sure, some of them have faded into relative obscurity, right? Like Poulter, Martin Keimer. Oosthuizen still competes a little bit on the PGA Tour, but he's not the force like he was when he just shot onto the scene in the Open Championship. Graham McDowell, another one that's kind of faded into obscurity. But when you're losing Dustin Johnson, when you're losing Phil Mickelson, when you're losing young, energetic people like Ricky Fowler that are fan favorites, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt significantly. And so it behooves the PGA to not sit in their ivory tower and be like, I can't believe you left us. But being like, okay, how can we compromise? Because compromise is the name of the game at this point, right? Mm-hmm. It's how can we all be successful? You want rights to your media? Okay, let's do that. And guess what? We'll also, when we give you the rights to your media, we'll just kind of handshake you your PGA Tour card back just to make sure that we're all good, right? It's just one of those things that, it's got to be fixed.
And we've seen this isn't unprecedented. We saw this in the 60s. We had a great show talking about this. Jack Nicklaus is part of one of the many golfers leading the charge because they were not happy, right? Not happy with the way things were, the status quo of the PGA. And they ended up winning in the end, but it took a lot of coming to the table to get it to where they need to, and we haven't gotten a lot of coming to the table yet. And I think right now the PGA has really brushed off this LIV Golf Tour as more of an irritant, and the more big names decide to do what these other names have done is going to force their hand. I don't understand why there's so much of an irritant. This is not the same as the PGA. There are different events going on here in the LIV Golf Tour. You have team captains with crazy names. Phil's team name is the High Flyers. They had a freaking draft to pull players in. You've got the individual events, and at the same time, you've got team events. Like this, I know. No, this is what I'm saying. This isn't what you're getting from the PGA. You're not doing this in the PGA. The only time you have team events in the PGA Tour is when it's the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup. It's situations like that. Otherwise, it's every man for himself, and that's how golf is. This is mixing it up. It's not giving you the same thing. Why is it a problem?
And we love the team competitions in golf, right? This LIV Tour seems like it's going to be making golf attractive to people who are not like us, that like love, like I literally brought my putter downstairs tonight so I could putt a few on the carpet before my outing on Saturday. But like this makes golf more attractive because golf is fun, right? Golf can be fun, and it's not necessarily as fun when it's just birds chirping in the background. Everybody's got to be quiet. We got to hold ourselves to, like that's what's so great about the Ryder Cup it's like a college football atmosphere when it shouldn't, on a place that is not known for having a college football atmosphere, right? It's also why the Waste Management Open is so awesome down in Phoenix. It's because you got the Stadium 16th, right, where it's a par 3 and everybody's going nuts, and these, not cool golfers get to act like, raising the roof, like Tiger when he hit his ace and he's raising the roof like 10 years after that was cool, right? So it's one of those things that like it's just going to be good for the sport, and I am very excited because they kick off this week, do they not, Matt?
They do. Yep, it is. It's kicking off this week in London. I think it's actually starting tomorrow. Oh no, wait. Now they do. Remember, we talked about this. They do 54 holes, not 72. So is it Thursday to Saturday or is it Friday to Sunday? That is a good question. I need to see.
We're gonna have to figure that out. But there's there's team events, and you have 4 captains, right? Or 12 captains. I'm sorry, 12 captains.
No, 12 captains of teams of 4.
Of teams of 4, so 36 players. The captains were Phil, DJ, Sergio Oosthuizen, Ian Poulter, Martin Keimer, Kevin Na, Graham McDowell, and Taylor Gooch? How do you say it?
Gooch.
Gooch.
Yeah, Taylor Gooch. No, Taylor Gooch.
Okay.
You ain't heard Taylor Gooch?
I haven't, actually, to be honest.
Taylor Gooch been around for a while.
So, as you mentioned, Phil's team is the High Flyers. Listen, these guys had to have picked these names because it's like fantasy football, right? This is fantasy golf, but in real life. Phil's the High Flyers. DJ's the Aces GC. Oosthuizen, he only selected players from South Africa, his home country, and they are the Stinger GC. And then Poulter followed suit and only selected English golfers. Of course, he only selected English golfers. And they're the Majestics, spelled Majest with the actual sticks word.
Majestics.
Yeah, Majestics golf club. And then that team includes Lee Westwood as well. And I hope that the English team's pants are the British flag, because Poulter would wear that. So I hope that he makes everybody on his team wear the British flag as their pants.
That would be fantastic. If everyone dressed it like Ian Poulter, that would be so much fun. I know Lee Westwood's down for it. He ain't got a problem. Lee Westwood is one of the kings of accepting and having fun in golf, especially later in life. He got his wife on the bag and stuff. He just really enjoyed it much more. So I'm all for that. I would love that, because nothing is better for golf than ugly pants.
No, nothing. I mean, John Daly has built a company out of it. Let's talk about Lee Westwood. He might be the player that I am most disappointed never won a major.
He's been close, too.
Heartbreak Hotel, man.
Very, very close.
Heartbreak Hotel.
Okay, so it is Thursday through Saturday.
Okay. So when do they broadcast?
So it ends on Saturday.
Do they have time for the broadcast? Because there's 6 hours ahead of
you're
us.
in London. So it's gonna be a little early for those in the East Coast, and it's going to be really early for those on the West Coast.
Really late.
Because if they're teeing off at 9 a.m. in London,
it's 3 a.m. here.
You are talking about 4 a.m. Yeah, 3 or 4 a.m. in the East Coast, and I mean, well, actually, you know what? Cool. In the West Coast, you good. You're just getting done with your night. You get to go home. You turn on live golf. Perfect. Got home from the bars. You might have another couple more beers. Watch 18 holes till about 4 in the morning, and then crash out.
So what's crazy though is like these guys got paid bank just to join the league. Phil got $200 million.
Well, we
rumored.
think.
Right, it's rumored.
It hasn't been confirmed yet. Rumored $200 million for Phil. What we do know as far as payments is that, you know, the first 7 events of the season feature a $25 million purse, 20 of it to be split over the 48 golfers who play a part in the tournament. The winner is going to get $4 million guarantee, last place guaranteed $120,000. The remaining $5 million is dispersed among the teams that finish in the top 3. $3 million to first place, $1.5 million to second, and $500,000 to third to be split among the players. So that much we do know. We are obviously assuming and correctly assuming that some of the bigger names, like a Phil Mickelson, like a Dustin Johnson, are probably getting something extra as well.
What do you think they offered Tiger? Because you know
I think they offered Tiger $1 billion. I think they offered Tiger $1 billion to leave the PGA because they knew that they were going to have no shot whatsoever if it wasn't at least $1 billion.
But what's
because this is Tiger Woods.
Did you see Rory's comments?
Earnings
today?
And endorsement deals that have made him $1 billion.
Did you see Rory's comments?
It had to be $1 billion to even get his peak his interest.
Did you see Rory's comments?
Which one? The latest one? I haven't heard the very latest. I heard them the other week.
Well, and
I heard them.
Yeah, so
not the very first one.
And this is going to be paraphrased, but it was something to the effect of, whenever you chase money, it rarely ends well, as I have found out personally in my own life, is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to take Rory's stance on this, because he obviously had the option to go. Because you're not going to get these guys without, of course, asking Rory, who's one of the best golfers in the world. But for whatever reason, he's being loyal to the PGA Tour, which I respect. But at the same time, would kind of like to see Rory in a team competition again. So, I don't know. Do you think the guys are just chasing the money, or do you think it's bigger than that?
No, I think I think there's a lot of reasons. Each guy has their own individual reasons. Some people, absolutely. They're talking about a life-changing amount of money for guys who maybe haven't had the opportunity to really make the life-changing amount of money. Now, the guys that we know by name have already made that kind of money.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not chasing the money in this aspect. Maybe some of them have the same problem Phil has, and they just weren't vocal about it, that they're not happy with the way the PGA is run. They're not happy that they can't take advantage of their own likeness and their own highlights. Qualities that they have thrown on the golf course, they can't do anything about. Maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe it's to be part of a groundbreaking new league that they're hoping takes off, and they get to be, in the ground floor of it and be remembered, all time in sports for helping set this new golf league. There are all sorts of reasons. Whatever the reasons may be, I don't think any of them are wrong. I think they all have every right to make the living the way they want to live it, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, and they're not. I think any reason that you can give for wanting to move on to a higher paying job, something that people in everyday lives like you and I deal with all the time. It's decisions people make all the time in life about leaving a comfy position for a chance at something for greatness, or just a higher paycheck, or whatever it may be. I am not willing to judge anybody for the decisions they make to live the life they want to live, as long as it's not hurting anybody else.
I'm with you. I'm excited, man. I want to see these guys play. I miss watching Lefty play, so I'm excited to see him back out on the course.
Same. Very much same. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Guys are going to be mic'd up. It's streaming, so you're going to hear, 4-letter words that you don't normally hear. They get them every once in a while on the PGA broadcast, which I always enjoy. But I think you're going to be hearing it quite a bit more on the LIV Golf Tour. So, we will be back to talk about this the next time we swing around for you guys. But that is it for tonight's show. For AJ Riley, I'm Matt Basson. Thank you for hanging out with us on Straight Shootin', and we'll see you guys again real soon.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what?